What you got on there?
Well, what I have on, I have a coyote that goes all the way down to my back here. And then these two are wolves' faces, the black and white. I have a wolverine pelt right here, and rabbit pelts make up most of it, except for a possum way in the back. I think he's right there. Yep, there he is. I got these medicine pouches and this flask, and I traded all for it at Trappers during my tenure as a Boy Scout. Now I'm an adult, just trying to create the ambiance of the whole thing.
That's awesome. How many years did you come to Trappers before to collect all that?
Oh, this is my 10th year at Trappers, and I'm still adding on to this thing.
That is an awesome collection.
Yeah, I just sew them all together.
We went up into the mountains in the wintertime, and we'd set our traps, and we'd trap fox and beaver and anything else that'd get in our traps. But we didn't trap no bears. We left them bears alone, because them bears is nasty critters. Mean and nasty, you bet. You bet. And if you didn't watch it, they'd eat you. The only time we'd mess with bears is bears was messing with us. Well, we'd skin them animals, and we'd tan their hides, and then in the springtime, we'd bring them out of the mountains to rendezvous. And in 1830, I went to a rendezvous on the Green River, which was the biggest rendezvous in rendezvous history. There was 4 trading companies there. And we sold our hides, and we stayed there for 3 weeks. And we'd have competitions of shooting rifles and racing horses, and in the evenings we'd throw a little bit of dice and other things. We don't need to get into all of that, but
this guy's going to slow us down too much, he's going to die. The last 2 guys that stayed with me were there to bury me. One of them is named Jim Bridger. You've heard of Jim Bridger, some of you guys who know about American West history. Jim Bridger was a young guy. He was afraid of getting attacked by Indians, so he's going to die anyway, so they left. Well, I didn't die. I crawled for 6 weeks to a fort, 200 miles away, and there I recovered. It took me 2 months. Well, my goal in life now was to find Jim Bridger and get my rifle, and I was not happy with it. So I went and found him, actually. There weren't many people in the mountains, and people kind of knew where I were because there just weren't a lot of folks. So I found Jim. Jim was a young guy, like I said, 17 years old. Anybody here 17? You're 17? No. And so actually, I felt sorry for him because he made a mistake. And we became really good friends. So I attended, since then, the first mountain man rendezvous, which was in 1826, almost 200 years ago. And worked for fur trading companies. I was a scout and an explorer. So my name is Hugh Glass.
What you guys got with us?
We've got these little fire starters in a bottle.
What's in that?
In this, it has basically anything flammable. It's got paper, toothpicks, little scraps of string.
All right.
This is a rope kit. If you need to tie something together, you'll use this.
All right.
That's another fire starter, This is a personal first aid kit. It has toothpicks and Band-Aids in it.
So what are you trading for today? What's the main thing you'd like to get?
Knives.
Knives? All right. And do you have some knives to trade yet?
Yeah, I actually have 2 that I'm definite I do. I've got this one and this, and then I might, for the right item, trade this.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice one. All right, cool. Well, that's very creative.
No. Big. But he probably could have been a government official now because he was that shrewd. And see, the Cherokee tribe was the first tribe that ever put the English language into an Indian language. Did you know that? That gentleman's name was Sequoia. I've read. Could you hand me that basket, please? Anyway, the government come in and made a bunch of promises to the Cherokee saying, hey, if you'll give us up some of your ground, we'll do right by you. Well, they ended up taking it all. And then they ended up marching the Trail of Tears. But Sequoia put it all down together and he made it into a newspaper. But the Cherokee word for Cherokee is Pequot. See, and I speak Sioux, and I also was raised at a Cherokee with the Cherokee family too, so most of my stuff here is Sioux, but I got a lot of Cherokee going on too.
Yeah, we've got my mom's side's Blackfoot and my dad's Cherokee.
Is that right? Very good. You said that right. Not Blackfeet. Blackfoot. There's no plural in there. That was a bad. They say the Sioux was hell on wheels with a horse, but the Blackfeet were frickin' Apache mean. Set that down. That's hot. The disclaimer is hot. It's hot.
Drop this, don't catch it.
Once he takes that hammer, that wrench, and he touches it, if it's soft, we'll know. Once it's hard, I don't know. It's already ready to go. Now it's hot. This thing's going to be about 1,000 degrees, 900 degrees.
Wow.
He's going to dump it in the water and cool it down, and then we'll get it to you. And you guys will go over there and file and cut these with a hacksaw, and then file them clean. And you get to keep the coin and the medallion.
Oh.
We remount the centerpieces.
Yeah.
So what happens is you're making a tradable deal that's a Trapper's logo with 2014 on it, and everyone's free to do. We've got 3 lines going that way. This is just our viewing area here. A lot of the guys that make them, they come around and watch their metal being poured.
So that cold water tempers that aluminum?
Well, it just cools it down. To heat treat aluminum, this kind of aluminum, to like, they have what they call a T6 configuration. A lot of this is probably 6061 scrap from our shop, so a lot of times we reference it as a T6. The heat treat cycles on that is actually 2-stage cycle, where the first cycle is almost 10 to 11 hours, and the second cycle is about another 10, 11 hours. And that's where we artificial age it out.
So it's not exactly like
Raccoon, skunk, deer skull, beaver, rabbit, possum, raccoon, muskrat skull, raccoon skull, bobcat skull, rabbits underneath them, flying squirrel, muskrat, rabbit, and that's full, it's got all the feet, fox, squirrel, rabbit, flying squirrel, ram horn, beaver, possum, rabbit, and I think those are chicken bones.
And where did all these come from?
I've been trading, collecting, buying for years.
I killed them all.
And are these all Kansas specimens, or are these from the West?
I think most of them, yeah. I'm a Kansas fur trader, and I tan some of these. Some of these I get tanned.
Now, is it true you take the brain and get the tannic acid out?
You can. That's a really kind of complicated process. It's not complicated. It's just tough. You need experience. Once you're used to it, then you can get really nice hides out of it.
How do you do yours?
I do mine with an alum tan. I have to take the pelt, and the first step is always to scrape all the fat off. So you get a blunt blade, and you scrape it, and you roll the fat away from you. You typically have the head closer to you, and you scrape it towards the butt. Once you get all that off, you take salt, and you sprinkle salt all over it until it's totally layered. You let it hang. You can stretch it, or you can across a board, or you can let it hang, let it dry, come back 6 hours later, scrape all the salt off, put more on. That's removing a lot of the oils from the skin. And you also want to keep the bucket underneath because there's going to be oils dripping down into the bucket. Once all that is done, you scrape all the salt off. I would suggest doing the scraping at least 3 times, depending on the thickness of the pelt. For the alum tan, I take 1 cup of alum, 1 cup of salt per 1 gallon of water. Before you get to the tan, you'll want to take the salted pelt and let it sit in a salt bath, which is 1 cup of salt per gallon. Let it sit for about 24 hours, and then once you're done with that, then you can put it in the alum tan. You put it in the tan there. Depending on the thickness of the skin, you'll keep it in there for longer or shorter.
Do you submerge it, or you just
Fully submerge it.
Oh,
submerge
wow.
it.
Okay.
And you mix it twice a day, once in the morning, once at night, so that none of it settles. Depending on the thickness of the skin, you'll want to keep it in there longer or shorter. Something like a mouse skin, you keep it in there a week. Something like a badger skin, you keep it in there 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
So it can take quite a long time. Once you're done with that, you take it out. You'll want to try and keep all the liquids off of your hands, because the alum, it's not poisonous per se, but it will
Can get into your skin.
It'll make you uncomfortable, and it can really agitate your skin. You wash it off in water, rinse it off. I suggest also washing the fur itself with some Dawn dish soap. That'll remove the oil from the fur, because otherwise it could get a sticky feeling. So you rinse all that off, and you lay it out flat in a dark, cool place. Let it dry for a bit. Check on it regularly every couple hours. Eventually, the skin is going to turn a darker color. It's going to be kind of a almost a dark, a light coffee almost. When it reaches that point, you'll grab it with your thumbs and stretch it. If it turns white, it's ready to be stretched. So if the skin is thinner, like the squirrel, like a rabbit, even muskrat, you can stretch it by hand and turn all that white. If it's a thicker pelt, you want to take it.
So if I brought in a stack of beaver and they were quality hides, they would tell you the highest was a 6-point blanket. That stack's a 6-point blanket, or that stack's a whatever. And it was based on the weight of the wool and the quality of the blanket. So that blanket right there, do you see the black stripes?
Yeah.
Those are points. That's a 3.5-point blanket. So it's right in the middle of where it needs to be. But like I said, it's a Hudson Bay, and it's got eaten. It's been on fire, and everything else. But I'm guessing it's. See, my rifle is 130 years old. That blanket is probably about 160 years old, if I was to guess.
How many beaver pelts would that trade for back then?
I don't know, because it would be quality. You could have 6 beaver and get a 3-point, but you could have 2 beaver and get a 6-point, because based on the quality of the hide, it's just like coon. You can always get a coon, but unless that fur's blue, it's not worth anything. So it's all based on. How do I say this and be politically correct? I'm looking for women. I feel like a really good-looking woman is like a 6-point, and a butt ugly woman would be like a 0.5 point. So it really doesn't go by the size; it's just the quality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But